Hi, I'm Paige. I'm back to give the B letter to the Letters of Paganism challenge. This is about Book of Shadows. Book of Shadows grimoires are kind of very similar, also vastly different, some people may argue. I am going to sort of explain Book of Shadows by showing you a little bit into mine. Some of it I'm just going to skim over really quickly because it's personal. Some of it I'm going to skip entirely because a girl has to have her secrets. This is the first Book of Shadows I made back probably sophomore year of high school, shortly after I started to get very much into the craft. And it's a very simple binder that I hot glued some extra fabric onto, and it didn't last very long. I wasn't really dedicated into putting anything into it except for some basic things that I had printed out offline. This is my Book of Shadows I have now. It is quite a bit bigger, and I had decorated it myself. Just not the back because it needs to be flat so I can write nice, you know. It's also embellished with beads that I used to wear in my hair back when I had dreadlocks, and necklaces and old bookmarks. And you really want to, in my opinion at least, try to personalize the actual book as much as you can, whether it be writing it on where like the inside would be in here. You can buy journals, diaries, anything. You can buy really big handmade leather bound hand pressed paper that costs thousands of dollars, but I like binders because you can change it and it's a little less intimidating to do. First off in mine, I just have a basic what a Book of Shadows is or should be. It's just a vast collection of everything. It could be everything and anything that you'd like. Some witches prefer to handwrite everything into their Book of Shadows. Mine is a collaboration of things that I have printed, I have hand typed, I have printed, painted. It's just a smorgasbord of everything. My index suggestions would be to have your god and goddesses, your list of herbs, colors, runes, symbols, different types of magic and the explanations, things about circle casting, elements. How did I phrase it? I phrased it as doctrines of truth. So quotes or prayers or any word that you take personally to your everyday manifesto. Traditions, holidays you could put in there. It's not that big for me. I have just kind of a short page about living spiritually, and it just reminds me to get into touch with things a little bit more. I did print this from a blog very long time ago. And also I just printed it out, copy, paste, and then I used temporary tattoos to embellish the pages. I have a little etiquette. Basically, don't touch anybody's shit that looks like it could be religious. It's just, you see spooky table, just don't touch it. Some pages are really in depth to where I have things that I have typed and printed and used tattoos and watercolors and cray paper, and like this page probably took me a half hour. That's just the Witch's Creed, not the Wiccan Reed. I believe they're different, or they're not, and it's just a different name. I'm not too sure. That's how old this page is. I also only typically recite it if I'm doing rituals, which is not fairly often. Elemental page, very basic, very easy to remember, very much a page that you should have in here. Sorry, Snapchat. I have things about familiars. I have envelopes that I made myself. Like, you can get super crazy. You can stay super simple. I have biking-y things in there because that just appeals to me. I think it's good to put in your views of the afterlife in there just because personally, I always go with you never know what could happen, and you don't want to leave people wondering. For me, I know that I have some people who would snoop through my book, even though it's very much asked not to. And in here is kind of, starts with a picture description of Valhalla and what each one does and how I think you get there and what old lore tells how we get there. And then I have some of my gods in here. This is Freya. She's a very big influence to me. However, still very much unknown. And this is all stuff that I had just researched and printed out onto a page. I also have hello. Don't yell at me if I pronounce that wrong. And these I got off Pinterest Halloween boards, and like the resources to this are just limitless. And the more that you put into it, the more its energy connects with yours, which is super important. I have things about how to draw down the energy from the moon. I have just straight diary entries of things that I did on the blood moon. Again, I have runes in here. Obviously, goes with the Nordic thing I'm into. Stuff about how I feel about using people's DNA in spell work. Yours, mine, anybody's. Different types of sands I have, or sugars that you can make. These are all pages that I had hand wrote about how to cast circles, which aren't my exact words. They are from Silver Ravenwolf's book back when I had originally started my journey, and I just hand scribed everything over. Then I realized that I could just type it, and to me it's got the same type of energy in here. I got the 9 noble virtues in here, as well as just some random lore that I thought was cute or fun, like anything about trees or mythology that I wouldn't necessarily take into my serious practice. I have spells that I've made myself. I have notes that I try to practice my videos with before I do them, and then I end up freestyling them anyway. Things about crystals, healing, everything. In the back of mine, which might be a little different than a lot of them, is I keep recipes from magazines or very old family recipes, because kitchen witchery is a huge part of what I do. Like, there's got to be a reason. There's a saying, the easiest way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Like, I think there's some kind of magical connotation behind that. And then in the very, very back, I have correspondence from friends who have had some sort of question or interest in my craft. And that's all I have in here. And then usually in the front, I just keep some notebook paper or little tiny pieces of paper to do spells with and things like that. But that is my boy right here. All of my Book of Shadows have all been charged and protected with spell work. I try not to do any type of spell work that will ever harm anybody physically, mentally, emotionally. However, on my Book of Shadows and what I call my witch's trunk, are all protected with, I don't really have a name for it, but it gives you basically the stomach flu for 3 days. And it's mainly so I know if the people I'm staying with are, you know, snoopy. I've had that happen before. And then, you know, they get sick for 3 days and I'm like, you went in the thing, didn't you? Yeah. No, I didn't touch the thing. You touched the thing. And then typically each page within that has that same spell on there. It's not necessary to keep a hardcore book like this. I know of people who keep theirs in their phones or just strictly have it on their social media. They'll use their Instagram accounts, they'll use YouTube accounts, and it's just electronic based. I think that is sort of where a lot more of our community is going to end up, is in digital media. As long as I think the personal witch itself should have some sort of outlet they're putting to their own personal use. There's a lot of Instagram witches, and I want to use that respectfully because I am also on Instagram and I am also a witch, so, and I know that, you know, Instagram witches are real witches majority of the time. I just wish that sometimes our community would stick more to basic traditional values. However, times are changing and we just got to kind of roll and flow with it, and the universe is what's giving us this technology in the first place, so we need to utilize it to the best of our advantage without abusing it. Even if it's just a bullet journal that you could do, or a notepad, anything really. Physically putting pen to paper, I think, does something for your soul that is really good, and it doesn't even have to be magical. It can just be doodles or scribbles or anything, but I think it's your soul's way of trying to communicate. And with electronics, the energy feeds just get a little muddled. If you're looking for good places to get blank journals, I personally have always liked Barnes & Noble. They're cute and inexpensive. Etsy has very cute grimoires that you can choose to personalize, and they get a little expensive, but if it's something that you're really wanting to do, or if it's going to be a family book of shadows, like something that you're going to put in and pass down to your children, that's worth, you know, all the money in the world to be able to have something that durable to last, I think. And there is no rules to it. These are all just suggestions and ideas, and you can put anything you want in there: poems, literature, websites. You don't even have to have a book of spells. Some witches don't put anything down ever. They just keep it all up there, and then they pass it on through word of mouth to their successors, and that's totally fine too. But like I said, I just think writing is a great form of therapy, and I think we should all try to do a little bit of it. I have no idea what I'm doing for the letter C. Probably candles, because that's what I'm getting into lately. So y'all have a blessed day, and I will be back with that.